Hey guys, Mark here of We Know Shapes. I don't know why my camera always does the thing at the angle I've got, but it makes me look like I've got a tiny head. It's not correct. I don't actually have a tiny head, guys. Anyway, today I'm just going to do a quick tutorial on my leather technique. So the focus is on showing you guys how I got the leather on the Raider pauldrons. It's still a technique that I'm working on, and if you guys have got any suggestions or ways to improve it, please just give me a holler. And I'd love to hear from your suggestions. I'm not very good at this sort of stuff. This is something most stuff that I figure out myself, or that I pick up off YouTube or other doers, crafters on the internet, and then I try and make them work and adapt them. So my effort is a little bit different to something you may have seen in the past, just because it is a little bit more forgiving, and it does give you the opportunity to fix things up a little bit if you do mess it up, which I do all the time. So I'll go through the steps over it over the next couple of minutes, just to show you guys how to do it and how to get the end result. I won't show you the finished version here, just because I'm lazy and I'm not going to finish it today. But I will show you guys the finished version over the next couple of days. There's going to be a lot more work going into it, hopefully make it look really fancy and really nice, but this one's going to be a pretty basic copy. And I'm hoping to do a better version with a lot more detail once I've got this down pat. So a big part of this requires using a iron for ironing clothes, some alfoil, PVA glue, and spray paint, and normal paint, and water. I do hope you have all of those things available, because if you don't, you won't be able to do it. I mean, you might be able to, you can figure stuff out, I guess, but for future reference, have those things on hand before starting. Alright, let's get started. Alright, part of the process once you've gotten your pieces cut out and ready to go is you need to get a piece of alfoil. Now, depending on the style you're doing, you can keep it smooth if you just want to replicate metal armor or something like that, or I've crinkled this up to try and give a little bit of pattern in the leather. What you do is you lay that over the foam. Doesn't need to be flat across it, just make sure it fully covers it. I'm working with one hand here, so it's a little bit difficult. And you get a hot iron. You place this on the foam and you very, very slowly move from left to right. Very slowly. The reason why is what's happening now is the heat will be sealing the foam underneath and imprinting that pattern that you've got on the alfoil into the foam. Now, it's not a super good transfer, but it's good enough. Now, the reason why I do this over using a heat gun is this doesn't burn the foam. It keeps it relatively the same color, and just seals the top layer of it. Now, you can also then use this to shape it to some degree. You'll need to heat gun it a little bit more later to get it to the finer shapes, but this will give you the main initial starting point. So once you've done this, what you'll find is the foam will have stuck to the alfoil. You need to be very careful in peeling it off, because if you get some alfoil stuck in the foam, GG, no re. It's a bit more frustrating to get it out, and it can actually ruin the piece. So as you can see here, foam stuck to the alfoil. So what I'll do, very carefully, just try and peel the foam off just as I go along. And as you can see, the foam's already bending, so I need to bend that back the other way. But you can see the slight little patterns on it all along. Now it's sealed, and that just gives you a little bit more texture. Here's one I did earlier. Same deal. As you can see, that's in a bit more better shape. And then I will just go ahead and complete all of these pieces. Yay! So now I've got the general shape and all of the parts sealed. What I'll be doing now is giving everything a quick undercoat of black. You want to be relatively light with the undercoat, because you really want it to get into those, if it's going to focus, whatever. Just take my word for it, all those little cracks and crevices on the armor. Now, what's going to happen is we will be coating this with PVA glue, and then flexing it to cause the PVA to wrinkle as well, which will give it a bit more of a finish, but I'll show you that in just a moment. about a flat black. Alrighty, next up we will be PVAing all the pieces. So what I'm using here is a mixture of PVA glue and water, probably about a 40-60 water PVA mix. I'm using PVA wood glue, Parfix from Bunnings, really cheap, does what it needs to. Now the reason why I've watered it down so much on this first coat is so it gets into all the nooks and crannies. But once you've got the first coat on there, you don't have to water it down quite so much, because that will protect the first layer of color. And the idea here is you still want a little bit of that black to be coming through, so that when you do a later coats, you can wipe that off a little bit to get the black to show through without actually affecting the black at all. Now this first coat of PVA is very important, because this will be what gives us our texture across the entire unit. Alright, so let's get to PVAing. Yes, yes, very good, very nice. Look at those strokes, yes. Alright, it's all been coated with PVA, and there's some guy vacuuming his car in the background, so not my fault. Now what we've got to do is, while we're waiting for this to dry, we just need to keep an eye on it a little bit to things like this here, where PVA is kind of building up in certain splotches, just because what that'll do is that'll give you little blotches on your finished product. So just when you see them, smooth them out a little bit. Alright, just keep an eye on it. Takes about 10-15 minutes to dry, then give it probably another 5 minutes after that, just to be on the safe side. And then from there, we'll move on to the next step, and I will see you then. Alrighty guys, the PVA glue has dried, and what I've done is I have pre-creased this one to give it a bit more texture going on. So as you can kind of see, if I bring this up to the light a bit more, you can see it's got a bit more texture now. It's all roughed up, especially on the edges there, because I really want to focus on the edge and try and keep the middle reasonably smooth. So that's the end result that I'm looking for in terms of texture, and I'm going to spray over this in just a moment, but I'll show you how I did it. Now remember that thing before where I said keep an eye on your PVA?
We just need to keep an eye on it a little bit.
You gonna focus for me? Huh? And it's not. As you can see, there's a slight rise there. So let's just deal with that now. Just by getting it and just kind of smoothing it out. Sorry. Look at the camera, Mark, not at what you're doing. Alright, so that'll just flatten out. It's still wet in the center, so it should be okay. If not, oh well, it's one little bit. Alright, so grabbing a not yet done piece, as you can see, this doesn't have the same level of texture. All we're going to be doing is this. Just grabbing the edges and just depressing them. Alright, so as you can see, what that does is you can see it wrinkling the PVA. And then you do that gradually, with enough force, and it keeps the wrinkle in it. This gives it the leathery texture, especially if you keep it up all along one side. In one direction will give you kind of a grain, which leathers do have. So then once you've got the kind of grainish pattern that you want, as you can see, all the way through. A little bit less on the edges because the edges are thicker. I can't quite fit my hand around it, but let's do that. There you go. That gives you the kind of grainy texture you want. So once you're happy with the texture you're getting, you can keep going if you want. Literally, you can make this a mass of imperfections and grains if you really wanted to, or you can make it as little as you want. It comes down to how much or detail you want in your leather work for you to actually go ahead. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start spraying it and showing you guys how I go about spraying. Alright, I'll be back in a moment. Right, so I've just done the base coat on the leather. As you can see, you're probably saying to the screen right now, Mark, that doesn't look much like leather. And you'd be right. This now needs the wash on it to get into all those little nooks and crannies to really give it that leathery look. So I'll be doing that next. Now, this coat is made up of two different colours. Depending on what you want as your base, will depend on what base coat on. I've put on this gloss claystone, which gives it that nice kind of orangey brown look. Just because I do appreciate the brighter leathers. I'm going to mess around with it to see what the darker options are. Now, on top of that, I've put some Gloss Mission Brown that I've just kind of lightly sprayed across it, just to see what it looks like. That's giving me my current look. So I'm going to work with this one to see how it comes out, see if I do like the actual entire look. I'll come back a little bit so you can see it, and then we might change it a little bit in the next one. Alright, it's time for the wash. The wash I use is simply burnt, come on camera, focus for me, burnt umber, yeah, you can read that, with a fair bit of water. It's a really, really thin wash, so I put a lot of water into it, and I just paint it on there. And then I leave it for a little bit longer than you think you should. The reason why is what happens is it mostly dries, and then you use a sponge. These are, I don't know, $3 a pack of 3 Kmart sponge, and you just wipe it down.
Yes.
I'm not going to show that on camera because I've got one hand, but it turns out like this. So this is the end result after wiping it down. As you can see, still a bit shiny. We'll deal with that in a moment, but it gives a lot more finer detail. You can see a little bit of colour in all those crevices now, and it makes it look a bit more blotchy. Probably can't see very well because of that bloody light, but hey. So this looks now a little bit more like leather, and it's now ready to move on to PVAing, repeating the wash step a couple more times, and then putting on any more detail you want. Now the best thing about this, if you don't like how many wrinkles and you think it needs more, you can just wrinkle it again. You can keep doing this on each layer of PVA until you've got it. Now what happens is, to reduce that shininess, we're going to try out a couple of things to see if we can rough up the surface and just get that shimmer a little bit going. Alrighty guys, so really from there it just comes down to putting a coat of PVA onto it, repeating the wash a little bit, another coat of PVA, another coat of wash. You do less and less wash each time, and you try and take more and more of it off. The main focus there is you're just building up layers of the colour. You might even try changing the wash colour, getting a brighter or darker colour, maybe washing in a little bit of black, just to kind of give a variety of colour to your leather work. Now this is a brighter leather. Of course you can use darker colours or lighter colours to create different varieties of leather, or even completely different colours such as reds or green to create dyed leather. Any kind of indentation or markings you put into this will carry through with the PVA if you do that really thin wash coat first, okay, because that locks in the base colour. Now, to give you guys an example, this one on the left here is the one with the wash. This one on the right has not been washed. In fact, I've just repainted that one because I messed it up a little bit. So we get them nice and close. That's the one without the wash. Very shiny, doesn't look fancy. This is with the wash. Not as shiny, and seems a little bit more, got a little more depth and a little more colour to it. So this one looks a little bit more like actual leather. As you put more wash on, these little crevices will become more and more highlighted. Like I said, if you put a really dark wash onto it, my wash wasn't that dark, those are going to really pop out, look a little bit more cartoonish or a little bit more defined. Or if you put a lighter wash in, of course you won't see it as much. I'm going to toy around with it, see how we go. Just picked up one of the Golem stilts from the pile of crap I've got in my backyard. Just wondered if anyone wanted me to do a tutorial on how to build these sorts of things. This is a more advanced version of our original design, because it's got foam in the center just to give it a bit more strength, and a shoe on top, which I strongly recommend. Now, to give you an example of how big this thing is, that's just below my knee. From the ground to just below my knee. So that by itself adds 1.5 feet to a person's height, roughly, give or take. Alright, that's very easy. Slide your foot in, do it with straps, and then you got a big romper stomper. Yay! Alright, if you want me to do a tutorial on these in the next time, comment Golem, G-O-L-E-M, not G-O-L-L-U-M, in the comments below, and I'll think about it. Cheers, guys. Alright guys, that's really all I've got for the tutorial. There's not much more beyond that. It's really basic, it's really simple, and it's really effective in my opinion. I'm looking forward to the finished product, which I should have out over the weekend. I'm still not sure exactly how I'm going to do it all, but I've got a couple of ideas. Hopefully to avoid rivets where possible, because I'm really bad with rivets. I'll work on that. A big part of it is going to be making sure I get the strapping correct across the front and cordage across the side, so it's adjustable to fit anyone's side. I've tested it, it does fit me, but it's not built for a person my size. I'm looking to, of course, have this available to anyone smaller than me. I'm a big dude. But I can, of course, build it larger for larger people as well. Now, this is a templated design for the actual leather tunic itself, so I can remake these things. and I'm finding myself getting pretty consistent with the leather effect itself, so I should be able to keep that up. Again, if you guys have got any questions or queries or any suggestions on how I can improve, please hit me up on either the We Know Shapes page or directly here in the comments section. Just because I'm starting out, I don't do much, and it would be nice to hear from you guys and get suggestions, even if it's just a thank you for showing the technique that I use. Other than that, we're all good. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. I don't know how it's going to go. I haven't edited it yet. This is me filming at the end of the day. Yeah, cool. Thanks again for tuning in, guys. It's been Mark from We Know Shapes. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. We'll see you later.